Thank you, young people. That is not easy to do, to stand in front of this many people and sing. And I'd much rather preach for 45 minutes than to sing for 5. And so thank you to our young people for that. Not saying I'm going to preach for 45 minutes. We'll see. Turn to Luke chapter 2 in your Bibles, if you would. Luke chapter 2. I'm thankful for our young people and their willingness to be a part of the service tonight. But at the same time, I would like to apologize to some of our teens. We had a teen choir special planned for tonight where I was basically said you don't have an option. If you're a teenager, you will sing in the choir. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, that's not right. In the church, we don't require people, mandate people to serve. Forced service is no service at all. And so I was way over here on this side, and then as oftentimes people do, you swing way over to this side and say, you know what, we're just not going to do it at all. Well, now there's several young people who missed out on an opportunity to serve, and I apologize for that. And I took away that opportunity for many of you who would want to be a part of it. And next time, I know that doesn't help tonight, but next time we do a teen takeover service, we'll make sure and we'll have that in there for you. And I do apologize for that. Luke chapter 2. Before you think, Pastor Witt, you're a few weeks late for the Christmas story. We're not going to be, first of all, the Christmas story, man, you could preach that any time of the year. That's good news. But we're going to look toward the end of chapter 2. If you would take and turn to chapter 2, look at verse 41. 41 and following. It's the only time in the scriptures that we see a glimpse into the life of Christ in his growing up years. And only Luke is the one that records this account for us. Luke is called the beloved physician, and so I think it makes sense that a doctor would have an interest in the physical well-being of a child as he grows. In fact, twice in Luke chapters 1 and chapter 2, he says that the child grew. And so I believe that's why Luke would mention this. But we see just a glimpse into the life of Christ in his growing up years, and there's much we can learn from it. Pick it up in verse 41. Now his parents, Jesus' parents, went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast. And when they had fulfilled the days, as they returned, the child Jesus tarried behind in Jerusalem, and Joseph and his mother knew not of it. But they, supposing him to have been in the company, went a day's journey, and they sought him among their kinsfolk and acquaintance. And when they found him not, they turned back again to Jerusalem, seeking him. And it came to pass that after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. And all that heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. And when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said unto him, Son, why hast thou thus dealt with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. And he said unto them, How is it that ye sought me? Wist ye not that I must be about my father's business? And they understood not the saying which he spoke unto them. And here's the key 2 verses tonight. And he went down with them, and came to Nazareth, and was subject unto them. But his mother kept all these sayings in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. I believe that Christ was raised as a normal young man. I believe there wasn't special treatment or those type of things. I believe he grew up as a normal young man would grow up at this time. Now, I've confessed this to the teenagers many times. My imagination is just weird, okay? In fact, I'm 32 years old, and when I pillow up my head at night, sometimes I'm still like, I'm Batman, Or, you pretend you're the superhero that's going to save the day, right? And my imagination it's weird, okay? And so when I think of Jesus being a young man, Okay, and I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I'm not at all trying to be disrespectful or anything like that. You understand that, please. I hope you do. But my imagination goes to Jesus as a child and some of the fun he could have had. I think of, I don't know how many mud puddles there were in Israel, but perhaps he knew that he wasn't supposed to run and jump in the mud puddles because then he gets dirty and all these things. And so when the other kids run and jump in the mud puddles and they splash everywhere, Jesus runs and jumps and he lands on top of it because he can walk on water. And maybe his little brother, Jude, runs over and he's going to jump in the puddle, and just as he's about to splash, Jesus parts the puddle and he lands on dry ground. I don't know, that's what I'm weird, I know, but that's what my imagination thinks. Or perhaps at dinner, Joseph pours water in his drink and they pass it around and everyone pours water in their cup and Jesus gets it and it's wine or grape juice. I don't know, that's what my mind comprehends or thinks of when I think of Jesus as a child. Now, reality says no, that didn't happen. Why? Because the Bible says that his first miracle was turning water into wine, but not at the dinner table. It was at the marriage of Cana. And so Jesus didn't perform those miracles until he was in his ministry, meaning this: he didn't walk around as a child with a halo on his head. He didn't walk around everyone knowing, oh, this is Jesus, this is the Messiah. He didn't walk around that way. I believe he was raised as a normal young man. Now, how that fits with God is 100% man, yet 100% God, when we start talking about that, my brain explodes. I cannot completely comprehend that, but I know that's what my Bible says. So Joseph and Mary are raising him like they would any of their other children. They're not taking advantage of him. They're not making a circus out of this. Come pay $5 and be healed. They weren't doing that. They were raising him as if they would any one of their other children. So we see that he was raised as a normal young man. We also see that Mary and Joseph are much more like us as parents, as humans, than we might think. Now, were they great people? Of course they were. God specifically chose them. But at the same time, they were human. I know the Catholic Church raises Mary up. She was a woman. She's not deity. But they're very similar in that they lost track of Jesus. How many of you, be honest, have lost track of one or more of your children at any time? Okay, some of you are lying to me, I know it. All right. Every year, well, the last 3 years we've done this. I don't know if we're going to continue this or not, or how long we will, but the last few years, my wife and my children and I, we go to the Great Wolf Lodge in the Wisconsin Dells over Christmas. A couple years ago when we started doing this, it was because on Christmas Day, we basically had the place to ourselves. Now this year it was much more busy, so I don't really like sharing. I don't like sharing, okay? So I don't know how much longer we're going to keep doing that, but last year when we went, not 2-3 weeks ago, whenever it was, but last year when we went, Max was 1, Molly was 4, Macy and Mila were 5. And I tell you, for 5-year-olds, Macy and Mila, they were fearless. They wanted to go on everything. And there was a few rides where they were about a half an inch short, and when they walked up to the thing, the lifeguard said, go stand over here. I was like, get on your tiptoes. And they got on their tiptoes. Oh yeah, you can go. And they were fearless. They did everything they could. Molly is the polar opposite of that. She would rather sit with Max in 2 inches of water, and she is completely happy. So it was very easy for us. I took Macy and Mila, and we did all the crazy slides and all those things. Kathy would rather sit with the other two. She's not a fan of the roller coasters and all that. She'll go on some of the slides, but once, twice, maybe, okay, I'm good. I'll go sit with the other two. So it worked out great. Well, it was the second day. We're getting close to being done and heading home for the day. And in the middle of the Great Wolf Lodge, there's this wave pool. And for about 10 or 15 minutes, there's no waves. It's just a pool. And then for 10 or 15 minutes, there's waves, and it goes crazy. And how you know it's going to start is there's this big, loud wolf howl, and everyone's like, oh, run to the, you go running into, and the wave pool starts. Well, Macy and Mila really wanted to go into the wave pool. Molly did not. Max, obviously, we're not going to let him. He's one. And so we're all standing at the very, very top of the wave pool in about 2 inches of water. And we're talking. And then the howl. And Macy and Mila, oh, it's time. Can we go? Can we go? Okay, let's go. So I'm walking with Macy and Mila. Molly and Max are with their mom. So we're walking along, and we get out a little deeper and deep enough to where Macy and Mila can no longer stay above the water walking, so I pick them up. And so that's a good workout, having twins, by the way. That's a really good workout. So I'm holding them, walking them out deeper and deeper. I'm kind of tall, and so I can go out pretty far into the wave pool, and we're having fun, and apparently what happened I can only speculate or guess, was that Kathy was watching Max and Molly, and Molly runs around a little bit, as children do. And I no doubt Kathy saw Molly. She's close by, okay. She looks back to play with Max, or something like that. I thought Molly was with Mama. Mama thought Molly was with Mama. But Molly was chasing after me because she wanted to come out too. I didn't know that. I couldn't hear her over all the other screams. And so we get deeper and deeper to the point where Molly can no longer stay above the water, and she freaks out. She gets scared. And all of a sudden, we're having a great time. I hear the whistle blow. The lifeguard jumps into the water, pulls this kid out, and this happens all within like a half a second. So I hear the whistle blow, I turn, I hear a splash of the lifeguard, and I see him pull this kid up out of the water. And my immediate response in that half a second was, what moron of a parent? And then I see it's Molly. I'm the moron. So I go running back with Macy and Mila till they can stand on their own, and I go get Molly, and she's crying and screaming, of course, and man, I hold her, and by that time, Kathy with Max, they've run over, and everything's okay, and it's amazing. From the time the lifeguard hits the water, in about 4 seconds, there's 8 people from the Great Wolf Lodge there with headsets and all these things, and radios, and all these papers and forms for us to fill out to make sure we don't sue them, and hey, man, it's my fault, not yours. You did your job, thank you. I thought Molly was with Mama. Mama thought Molly was with Mama. Molly was at the bottom of the pool. Not a good thing. You know what? That was just a half a second that we lost track of Molly. So I don't feel so bad when Mary and Joseph lose Jesus for 3 days. But think about this for a minute with me. Okay? They responded. You see Mary's response. Look down at verse 49. Verse 48. Son, why hast thou thus dealt with us? She's a little upset, and rightly so. Because stop and think about this for a minute. Not only did she just lose her son, hold on a second, he was the Son of God. If I lost Molly, as much as I love her, the future of redemption is not weighing in the balance of whether I find her or not. Mary's probably very upset, very concerned. I'm guessing for those 3 days she didn't sleep. And most likely, neither did Joseph, because Mary wouldn't let him. And so they finally find him, but notice how they see him. When they come in and they see what he's doing as he's talking with these leaders, verse 48, and when they saw him, they were amazed. They were amazed. They were amazed at his understanding and his wisdom and his knowledge. Now, I wish I had time to elaborate and go through all of this and how Jesus' response to them of, I must be about my Father's business, but that's for another sermon for another time. I want to focus in tonight on verses 51 and 52. Notice with me verse 51. And he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was subject unto them. He was subject unto Mary and Joseph. he puts himself under the authority of Mary and Joseph. Even though he is God in the flesh, he still was subject to his parents. He still placed himself under his God-given authority for that time in his life. Even though his understanding and his wisdom and his doctrine perhaps by this time exceeded Joseph's, he still placed himself underneath the authority that God had placed him under at this time. That's a great lesson for all of us. Because in reality, every one of us, no matter how high up we are in a company or no matter what our lot in life is, every one of us have an authority that we are placed underneath. Every one of us have an authority, a God-given authority, that we need to place ourselves under the authority of. He was subject unto them. Tonight, there are three thoughts to consider when talking about being subject, or this idea of submission. Three thoughts to consider tonight. First of all, number one, the responsibility of the authority. The responsibility of the authority. Turn to 1 Peter chapter 5, if you would. 1 Peter chapter 5. I believe one of the great reasons, yes, I understand that Jesus was God in the flesh, but I also have to believe that it made it a little easier for him to be willing to place himself under the authority because Mary and Joseph did a good job at being his authority. And that's what I want to talk about for a minute, the responsibility of the authority. If you find yourself as a parent or as a teacher, as a coach, as a boss in whatever fashion, if you have any authority over anyone else, this is for us right now. 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 1 through 3. To the elders which are among you I exhort, which am also an elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, and also partaker of the glory that shall be revealed. So, this is written to the person who's in charge, or those who are in charge. Verse 2. Feed the flock of God which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind. Neither as being lords over God's heritage, but being examples to the flock. It's very important that we have a proper understanding of our responsibility as authority. It is not to lord over. I love verse 2 when it says, feed the flock of God which is among you, not below you. Feed the flock of God which is among you. A couple quick thoughts tonight regarding the responsibility of the authority. First of all, I'm going to give you both of them so you understand I'm looking at this from both sides. But first of all, rules without relationship breeds rebellion. Rules without relationship breeds rebellion. And before I go into that, let me give you the second thought here. Relationship without rules breeds resentment. Relationship without rules breeds resentment. But first of all, rules without relationship breeds rebellion. It doesn't matter if it's a parent-child relationship, a teacher-student relationship, a boss-employee, a coach-player relationship, any relationship in which someone is in charge of or is responsible for someone else. If we are more focused on the rules than we are on a relationship, it's only a matter of time until we lose all and any influence that we have. If we're so focused on the rules and we don't take the time to develop a relationship, we're going to have no influence with those young people, with those who are underneath of us. Rules are important, but so is a relationship. Take the teacher-student relationship for a minute. I know we have a Christian school here, and we have a rule book, and it's important. As an organization, we have to have rules to function properly. We understand that. But I'm a teacher in the school. I teach the junior high Bible class. If I am more concerned about making sure when the kids walk in that I'm checking to see if every rule is done just right, their hair's perfect, shirt's tucked in, if I'm focusing more on the rules than I am in the relationship, there's a problem. I want to focus on the relationship. Let me give you an example. One of the rules we have in the school is this. Fellas, have your shirt tucked in. It's a pretty easy rule. Sometimes Guys have a very difficult time with that. I was there. I was a junior and senior in high school here. I didn't like my shirt tucked in. I still don't. And when I wear a suit, the back end's untucked. I'm just kidding. It's not. Okay? It's not. But earlier this year, I walked into the school and I saw Levi Erickson. He's in 8th grade this year. And as most of you know, a year and a half ago, his dad passed away. A few months ago, his mom passed away. And I walked in and I saw him, and sure enough, his shirt was untucked. I went over to him, and instead of pointing that out or calling that out, I went over to him and I said, "Hey, Levi, I noticed that yesterday was your mom's birthday. How was your day? Was it tough? Or was it fun to have all those memories of her?" Man, he opened up and we talked. I had a great time. And at the end of it, I put my arm around him and said, "I love you, man. Hey, before you go to the next class, tuck that shirt in." "Okay." And he ran off. That's being able to look at the relationship and the rules. If I focus only on the rules, I lose any chance of influencing him as far as the relationship goes. But I'm going to focus on the relationship first. A parent-child relationship. I know it's difficult. I know it's tough. My kid, they drive me crazy sometimes. Turn your bedroom light off. How hard is it? Apparently it's very hard. But you know what? I don't walk in when I come home from work. I don't walk in and march down the hallway and check to see if their light's on and then go back in and go turn your light on. I don't do that. I come in and I focus on my kids. Spending time with them. I put my briefcase down. Yes, I'm old enough to carry a briefcase. I put that down and my dog is always the first one to greet me because he's the fastest. And so I pet my dog for a minute and I just, hug all my kids and talk with them. And now when I make my way down the hall and to my room, if I notice the light's on, "Hey, Mila, Macy, go turn your light off." But my focus is relationship. Do you understand what I'm saying? If we focus so much on rules and we don't have time for relationship, we're going to lose any influence that we have. As a player-coach relationship, I have the opportunity to coach. I was proud of our young men yesterday, our junior high boys. Took second place in the tournament that we hosted. And it was almost the story of David and Goliath in that championship game, if you were there. There's some guys that were as tall as I was on the other team, and man, our boys didn't back down one bit. In fact, going into the fourth quarter, we were up by 1. That was pretty awesome to see. I was excited for them. I love coaching, not because I'm a great basketball coach or soccer coach, but I love that time spent with the young men. And I'm not going to, and I know people have, I'll say, criticized in a nice way. I've been told that I'm too nice as a coach. I'm okay with that because I'm not going to sacrifice yelling and screaming at someone to do it my way. Oh, maybe that'll make us win one more game that year, but now I've just lost the influence because the kid can't stand me because I screamed in his face. I'm focusing on the relationship. Oh, sure. There's certain ways I want it done, and if you don't do it, you're going to run laps, you're going to do push-ups, whatever it's going to be, but I'm not going to scream and yell at you because I care about the relationship. I care about beyond basketball, beyond soccer. There's more to life than sports. And a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to coach in a public school, and the coach, I was the assistant. He was bad cop, I was good cop, apparently. And but on the bus on the way home, as the kids got to know us a little bit, they would come talk to me about their family situations, not the coach that screamed and yelled and berated them. Why? Because I care about a relationship. Whether it's teachers, parents, coaches, whatever relationship it is, if the phrase, "because I said so," listen, that shouldn't be in our vocabulary. That works at 3 and 4 maybe. Sure, they don't understand the reasons for everything. But if we're still saying "because I said so" at 13, 15, and 18, there's a problem. We have not taken the time to establish a relationship with them. Rules without relationship breeds rebellion. But secondly, relationship without rules breeds resentment. I want to make sure you understand that I'm not saying it's all about relationship and we don't care about rules. No, we have to have rules. I don't even have to tell you about the illustration of rules of the road and speed limits. You understand what I'm saying. We have to have rules. We have to have rules to live by. But a relationship without rules breeds resentment. Matthew 5, verse 17, Jesus said, "Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill." We're not under the law in the sense that it cannot save us, but you remember what Jesus said in Matthew 5. Let me paraphrase. The law said you shouldn't kill, but I say I'm going to take it a step further. He's not getting rid of the law. He's actually taking it a step further. The law said you shouldn't kill, but I'm going to say you shouldn't even hate your brother. The law said don't commit adultery, but I'm going to say don't even look on a woman to lust after her. So Christ didn't come to just get rid of the law. We don't need rules. In many cases, he actually took it a step further. Rules without relationship. Yes, rules without relationship breeds rebellion. Relationship without rules breeds resentment. When I was a teenager in Danville, Illinois, there was a young man in the school there, the Christian school there. His name was Paul. He was a year younger than I was. Paul was a pretty good athlete. Now I'm talking elementary, junior high. But he was a pretty good athlete. He was a nice kid, well-liked. Paul lived just a few blocks away from me, and so we would hang out quite a bit. And for a while, we thought he was the coolest kid and he had the coolest parents. Because his parents didn't care where he went, who he went with, how late he was gone. They didn't care. Do whatever you want. Their idea was, man, if we have rules, he's not going to like us, but we just want him to like us. We just want to be friends with him. Relationship, no rules. I was in 9th grade. He was in 8th grade. I was over at his house. I don't remember if it was a Saturday. I don't remember all the details, but I was over at his house. We were playing, having a good time, and probably playing Super Nintendo or something from that generation. And I saw what time it was, and I said, "Oh man, Paul, I got to get going." And he's like, "Why do you got to go? It's the middle of the day or whatever." I said, "Oh, it's almost dinner time, and we eat as a family." And I kind of said it like, we always have to sit down together, me and my sisters and my parents. You know how it goes. Okay. We eat as a family. And you know what he said to me? He said, "I wish I had parents that cared about me like your parents care about you." They thought they had this great relationship with them because they didn't have any rules, but he resented it. He thought his parents didn't care about him. Believe it or not, teenagers, they're not going to like me saying this, they crave boundaries. They crave rules. They want structure. They need to know where the boundaries are. And most of the time, they do a pretty good job of staying within those boundaries. Oh, sure, do they run and take a diving leap out sometimes? Yeah. But for the most part, if we establish boundaries, they do a pretty good job. So long as we have a proper relationship with them. Why is it? I'm just going to be transparent right now with you, our church family. Why is it that as I look back the last 10 years or so, a high number of our young people have left, growing up, left the school, left the church, and don't want to come back? There are many that do, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for Nikki McElroy. Used to be Nikki Johnson. I'm thankful that they're back and ministering here in our church. I'm thankful for Ryan and Julianne. And I could go around, Blake and Emily. I could go around and I could name several people that have come back. I'm thankful for myself. I came back. There's a lot of people that I could say I'm thankful for, but do you understand what I'm saying? There's many that haven't come back, don't want to. Why is that? Oh, sure, at 18, 19, they're making decisions and they're adult decisions. And so many, it doesn't matter how their family relationships were, it doesn't matter how good of a job we did in the school or the church or whatever, they're just going to choose to go off on their own. I understand that. But it would be very proud, very arrogant of us as parents, as youth workers, as teachers, to say that it had nothing to do with us. I don't think there's anything that bothers me more than when a young person grows up at a place like North Love and doesn't want anything to do with it. I don't lose sleep at night for very many things, but that bothers me. I want to take a good hard look at myself. What am I not doing as a leader that I could be doing to help influence that? As a teacher in the school, what are we doing? Is there something we could do differently? Mom and Dad, is there something you can do differently? Because rules without relationship breeds rebellion. Relationship without rules breeds resentment. Either extreme is wrong. And so have rules, but have a relationship. First of all, we see the responsibility of the authority. But then secondly, we see the response of those under authority. Turn to Romans chapter 13. The response of those under authority. All right, now that I've gotten after all those in authority, the response of those under authority. Romans chapter 13, verse 1, the Bible says this: let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. Let me read that again. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. For there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Even the unsaved bosses that we might have, the powers that be are ordained of God. Verse 2, whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God. That word resisteth, that's a tough word to say, especially multiple times. And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. It's not they might, they shall. I love verse 3. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. So often teenagers, I've heard it said so many times that their perception is that the youth pastor or the parents or youth workers, they're out to get them. Not if you're doing right. We're not a terror to good works. But if your works are evil and we see it in your life and we say, hey, we need to change this area, of course I'm going to come talk to you about it because I care. But we're not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Notice in the first verse, though, it doesn't say to be subject unto the higher powers that we like, to be subject unto the higher powers that we agree with, to be subject unto the higher powers that are cool. It says, be subject unto the higher powers, period. Our response is to place ourselves under the authority, as Christ did to his mother and his earthly father. He was subject unto them. We also are commanded to be subject unto the higher powers. Look also in Hebrews chapter 13, please. Turn over to Hebrews chapter 13. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 17 says this: obey them that have the rule over you, and submit yourselves. For they watch for your souls, as they that must give an account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you. Obey them that have the rule over you, and submit yourselves. You know, that's not an easy thing to do sometimes. It's not an easy thing to do when you think something should be done a certain way, and the authority over you says, no, we're going to do it this way. It's very difficult sometimes to be subject unto them, to obey them, to submit yourselves. But God says there's blessing when we submit. And that's what I want to look at. Number 3, the result of a proper response to authority. Number 3 tonight. The result of a proper response to authority. Look at back in Luke chapter 2. Hopefully you kept your finger there. Luke chapter 2 and verse 52. Luke chapter 2, verse 52. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Here's the result. The result of authority taking their responsibility seriously. Perfect? No. But taking their responsibility as being the God-given authority, they're taking that seriously. And then those who are under the authority, their proper response to that authority of submitting themselves, here's the result. First of all, he increased in wisdom. The word wisdom has the idea of wisdom that belongs to men. And so again, here we have this idea that's tough for me to figure out, that Jesus was 100% God. So he had all of the wisdom and knowledge of God. But yet he was 100% man. And so here he increased in the wisdom of men. How that all works out, I'm not sure. But the Bible says he increased in wisdom. He was subject, he listened, and he learned. You know, when we place ourselves underneath the authority that God has given us, and we're subject unto them, and we listen, it's amazing the wisdom that we can gain. I'm 32 years old. I have a lot of ideas. And man, I'll take them to Pastor Kingsbury. And a lot of the times, hey, that's a great idea, let's do it. Sometimes, he looks at me like I'm a moron. Looks at me and, no, we're not going to do that. And that bothers me. It bugs me. Well, it's my idea. It's a great idea. But if I just, okay, and I place myself under his authority, you know what? It's a matter of a week or 2 or 3, and then I'm like, that was a dumb idea. I'm really glad he had some wisdom and said, no, let's not do that. I'm glad he didn't call me a moron even though he wanted to, but I'm glad he said no. And one of the results of a proper response to authority is there's wisdom to be gained. There's wisdom to be learned. But secondly, he increased in stature. He increased in stature. Now, the first thing we think of in the word stature, we think of height. Now, because he had a proper response to authority didn't mean he got taller, okay? This word stature here also refers to maturity or even his sphere of influence. And so he increased in his maturity, he increased in his sphere of influence. When we place ourselves under the authority that God has given us, we increase in our maturity. Why? Because it takes a mature person to do that. But we also increase our sphere of influence. Maybe not from people under looking up, but from people above looking down. When I see a teenager who is willing to submit and has, sure, there's always times where teens think they should do other things or whatever. I'm not saying they're perfect in it, but when they're willing to submit and place themselves under the authority of their parents or their teachers or whoever it might be, I think, wow, that's someone that there's a good young person. There's someone who I want, when we do whatever, I want them with me. I want to give them responsibility. Why? Because they're willing to submit and do it the way that whoever is their authority has said. They gain influence. I even listen sometimes to our teenagers. And I'll listen to them and take their thoughts on things. but not if they have no business or no desire to submit. There's influence to be gained. There's maturity to be gained just by simply placing ourselves under authority. But lastly, we see this, and most importantly, he increased in favor with God and man. He was earning respect of the people, but he also grew in favor with God. I think later on, as he started his ministry and he was baptized, he placed himself under the authority. What did God say? This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. He grew in favor with God and with man. As we place ourselves under the authority, as we have a proper response, even though our authority is not perfect, when we have a proper response to that authority, we will increase in wisdom, we will increase in stature, we will increase in favor with God and man. Young person, you want to know how to get respect from those who are older? Don't go tell them all of your ideas as if that you're going to change the world with it, but listen and follow underneath. That's how you will gain respect. That's how you will be lifted up to a place of leadership. Because if you can't follow, you'll never lead. So tonight, there's a great deal to be gained with a proper response to authority. So tonight, I don't know where you're at with this. Maybe you have authority over some facet of your life. Rules without relationship breeds rebellion. Relationship without rules breeds resentment. Let's have a balance of, yes, we need rules, but we also need a relationship. Maybe tonight you are one that's under authority of someone else, and that could be said of all of us. The response is obey, submit. Regardless of who this is, obey and submit. And there's the great result of that, increasing in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man.